After we had been there for about an hour, all the time with our carry-on bags, 3 bomb-sniffing dogs were brought in. One of them sat down by the bag that was brought in by the man in orange. He had an orange. He appeared to be of Indian or Pakistani or some similar descent, maybe around age 30. He was walked back to a room, not in handcuffs. He went in the door. He was in there approximately an hour. When he came out, he was handcuffed, taken away. An FBI officer came up to the group of the rest of us passengers and said the following, which is not exact but close. You're being moved to another area. It's not safe here. I'm sure all of you saw what just happened and can figure out why you're being moved.
We were taken to a customs area, and they brought bomb dogs and checked all the luggage with that. Another person was taken aside and handcuffed and brought out, and we were moved into another room for safety reasons, they told us.
My story on this has been the same all along, and the FBI now has 5 versions of their story, which I clearly lay out with a time period and with each version, and they're not credible. There is absolutely no excuse for the reason why. Number one, we were left on the plane for 20 minutes, not knowing if there was another bomb there. Number 2, security allowing us to take our carry-on bags off the plane, and we stood there with all of our bags together for an hour until the bomb-sniffing dogs arrived. And then, after they found one, well, then we're moved to another area, and now they don't want to talk about the man who was taken away.
You were there. They didn't stop him for immigration violations. The dog went over and sat down in front of his bag, the alert for explosives.
Right, exactly.
Unless this is a passport-sniffing dog. This is a huge story, one of the biggest out there. The FBI is on this full-time. They know what's going on. Why are they being dishonest? And how do we investigate this when the investigators themselves are engaged in clear obstruction of the truth?
I don't know how else to take it. It's either utter incompetence or intentionally hiding something, and I don't know how to take it.
I came out to the media and I said, look, that's not possible. These were bomb-sniffing dogs, not agricultural sniffing dogs. And this went on 5 times, and then they finally quit talking about him and gave up. But they kept changing their story about him. Obviously it would be easier for them to say, like they did the man in Tansu, that he just didn't exist, but they couldn't do that because there were so many witnesses. So that's how they handled that man. But eventually they just gave up on even talking about him. Interestingly enough, at the end of January 2010, when this case was about a month old, well, a little earlier on, we had Obama come out and say, hey, this was just a series of mistakes that we made, and we need to beef up our security procedures or what have you. But then recently after that, we had 2 important things at the end of January 2010. One was an ABC News article by Brian Ross, where he came out and said, yeah, this man in tan suit that was witnessed by passengers, he said passengers, but really it was just me, that, we're looking into this guy, and we think he actually helped the underwear bomber so that he wouldn't get cold feet. They didn't go so far as to admit what I had been saying, that that would have been impossible, that he was Al-Qaeda, because he went to the desk and said, we do this all the time, and then he had enough authority to walk down this hallway in a secure area and talk to the manager and get the man on the flight. So obviously Al-Qaeda couldn't do that, but they did admit the existence of the man in this article. So to me that was a big story, because it was not only the first time they admitted his existence, but they've never admitted his existence after that. But at least we have it once detailed. Not only that, but it's by ABC News, so fairly credible media, at least to some. But later in January 2010, we had hearings in Congress on this, where we had Undersecretary of State Patrick Kennedy come out, and if you watch the video of him, it's pretty telling that he's trying to cover up something and not tell the truth. He's squirming in his chair and seems really uncomfortable answering the questions. And this video is all over the internet if you want to Google it and look at it. But what he said is basically, we knew Abdulmutallab was a terrorist. We wanted to stop him from coming in the country and revoke his visa.
There have been numerous cases where our unilateral and uncoordinated revocation of a visa would have disrupted important investigations that were underway by one of our national security partners. They have the individual under investigation, and our revocation action would have disclosed U.S. government's interest in that individual and ended our colleagues' ability, such as the FBI, to pursue the case quietly and to identify terrorist plans and co-conspirators.
But we had a request from an intelligence agency, and he didn't say which one. What he said was, we'll talk about it in closed session. And he said we had a request from an intelligence agency that they're tracking Abdulmutallab. They want to let him into the U.S. to follow him and to catch bigger fish. And they honored that request in order to let whatever intelligence agency do their business so that they wouldn't knock out one lone soldier in the war on terror, and they could essentially follow him in the U.S. and catch accomplices. So that's what they admitted to. But Patrick Kennedy went on to say there's more to this, we need to talk about it in closed session, and that's kind of where it ended. So obviously I don't believe that for a minute. What I believe through, and what's been shown through the evidence, I believe, is that an intelligence agency gave Abdulmutallab an intentionally defective bomb and put him on the plane to stage a fake terrorist attack. So those two things early on raised a lot of red flags with me, and then because of that, I just started paying attention to every single detail in this case, going to all the court hearings, and it's just been one contradiction after another, one lie after another. You know, the media not wanting to report on things, and it's just, to me, it's a very, very obvious staged event. Through media, anyway, is nothing but a fourth branch of the government. Whatever the government says, the media reports. They don't question it. They just accept whatever the government says is fact. And I really found that out during this case. I didn't know anything about that before this, but I would see it firsthand where different reporters would interview me and they would think I had something important to say, only to figure out that their higher-ups would, not let them report the story, and then I would talk to them and wouldn't appear in the press anywhere. This happened many times with me in the free press. I did 3-4 interviews with them, and they would never, ever report anything on me. It got to be just, I'd see the free press reporter at a court hearing, and I'd be like, hey, are you ever going to report anything on me? No, but I still have all my notes on the case, would be the response, and I'd be like, okay, we'll talk next time, I guess. Okay. That kind of thing. Up until they were forced to cover me right before the trial happened, then the media was kind of forced to talk about me because I was named as the only witness for the defense. So, you will see the media talking about me if you go back to October, but from, say, January 2010 until October 2011, you'll see basically nothing of me in the mainstream media except for 2 Fox News interviews that I did in January 2011, which I was very shocked that they aired. Fox News local here in Detroit actually did an interview with me outside the courthouse in January 2011. I had about 10 reporters, or maybe 10 to 20 reporters standing by me, and I said, look, this is what happened. I know none of you are going to report it, and I told them the story what had happened. I was shocked when Fox News actually did report it on their 5 o'clock news here in Detroit, and then not only that, they came to my office the next day to do a follow-up interview, and I actually aired that on the 5 o'clock news. So,
was the man known as the underwear bomber a pawn in a larger plan by our own government? We told you about the 2 local attorneys, both passengers on board that plane on Christmas Day of 2009. They believe the government was behind the scare in the air.
The U.S. government gave Mutallab an intentionally defective bomb.
It's a shocking allegation, but Kurt Haskell remembers seeing Abdulmutallab at their gate at the airport in Amsterdam. He didn't have a passport, but Haskell says a man with an American accent in a tan suit helped him board anyway.
What he said was, first of all, this man needs to get on the flight and he doesn't have a passport. He's from Sudan. We do this all the time. That's a word-for-word quote.
That was basically the only mainstream media coverage I had from January 2010 through October 2011. Yeah, you know, I went to a lot of the hearings in the case.